As the days draw near to what we all know as the autumn equinox, the day of equal light and equal darkness, we are seeing that balance is deeply needing to be restored in the cosmos. My name's Carly, and we are here today to talk about the solar eclipse coming up in Virgo on September the 21st. And this is Water Within Astrology. I want to thank you for joining me, for listening to what I have to say about the energies that are at play. So let's get into it. Like I said, September 21st is a Sunday, and so the sun is highlighted on Sundays, hence the name. And so we're looking at a new moon, and that means the sun and the moon are together in the sky at the same exact point on the zodiacal wheel. And so new moons are always new beginnings. A solar eclipse is basically a new moon times 10. Eclipse season is not just one day or a week or 3 weeks. It reverberates 6 months out from when the points of the solar eclipse and lunar eclipse hits. So we are in a portal right now of, first we saw the first Virgo new moon at 0 degrees. Now we have gone through the 15-degree point of the lunar eclipse in Pisces 2 weeks ago. And now here we are approaching this final solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo. And this is a pivotal time. As we all know, things are being shooken up. We are hearing about the world's events and our anxiety is high. Perhaps we're having to learn new tools in order to cope. We are overstimulated perhaps, and we are realizing that we were never given an instruction manual on how to deal with the current times. So we're going to look to the planets to see what wisdom they have for us in order to bring and restore balance, not only in the world around us, but in our own lives, because the ultimate lesson is we only have control over how we react to things in our immediate environment, and even that sometimes we don't have the control that we think we do over it. So let's go into it. We have our Mercury ruling planet. Mercury rules over Virgo, and it also rules over Gemini, so it's also the ruling planet of where Uranus is currently in Gemini. And so I want to just first show you this chart. So we are seeing a beautiful kite formation happening with this chart, but it's not just a kite, and you'll see what I mean by kite in just a second when I show you. It's not just a kite. We have all planets involved in this formation except for one, Jupiter in Cancer. Funny, because that's like, Jupiter is so happy in Cancer. Jupiter is bringing all the good things and taking care of everybody and making sure everybody's basic needs are taken care of. It would be really nice to have Jupiter in this formation, but it's still there. It's still doing its thing. So here is the chart. And obviously I am just drawing it from freehand, no official measurements taken here. But if you can see that the shape of the chart is creating a kite shape, and you can see the top of the chart here is where our Virgo new moon is, conjunct Mercury, its ruling planet, which is in Libra now. It's just shifted over out of its domicile of Virgo into Libra. And it's making an opposition to Saturn and Neptune down here in Aries and Pisces. So what a kite is when we have a grand trine, we have a grand air trine, and I'm going to break all this down, a grand air trine forming here in this triangle shape with an opposition. And that creates that sturdy foundation of the kite. And so I started thinking about what a kite means to me, started thinking about what a grand air trine might mean, and how those two things are very similar. A kite needs a lot of air in order to fly. A kite is something that makes us think of maybe nostalgic memories and connects us with our inner child and brings us this like mystical experience of like involving the wind in, directly interfacing with the wind element in the activity of a kite. So I thought that was really fitting and beautiful because not every air trine, or any trine for that matter, is a kite. Because we have that opposition, and then I started thinking about what that polarization between Mercury and Saturn and Neptune means. Mercury, let's first start with, is daily habits. It loves rituals. It loves to sit down and to continuously and consistently show up every single day for something. It's about devotion. It's about the mind. It rules the mind-body connection, especially in Virgo. And so it's the only planet, Mercury is the only planet that can travel between Mount Olympus and the underworld. It's very changeable. And when we think about Mercury and Virgo, we might think about making plans and getting down to the details and getting control of a situation. Virgo can be the control freak, the perfectionist, the overly critical, intolerable person. And it's all in this idea that purification is what the goal is for Virgo. Virgo wants to purify, and so it can become intolerable of certain things and certain mindsets. And it can struggle with letting go of the anxiety that comes with knowing, and that comes with, being aware of like germs and like, on the mundane level, germs, or like, spiritual cleanliness, and wanting to like maybe become the hermit, right? Hermes is another name for Mercury, and Hermes is where we get the word hermit from. So there's this like tendency to maybe like isolate because of fear or because of anxiety or because of, you're too hyper aware, you're too vigilant, hyper vigilant, you're too stuck in fight or flight versus healing, which is really what Virgo is wanting us to do here, I think, with this energy, is figure out how we heal ourselves as individuals. And therefore, by showing up every single day, that's the Mercury aspect, that's the new moon in Virgo aspect. And then opposite here, once we show up every single day and create these new habits and we create a new healing regimen for ourselves that's unique to us, that only we can be our own authority about, that is the opposite Saturn. It's like we are our own authority when it comes to our bodies and our autonomies and our belief systems, our mindsets. And that opposition is maybe showing us where we've been avoidant to certain things that need to be dealt with, showing us where we need to come out of our delusions, because it's also opposite Neptune. Come out of the fog, come out of the escapism, come out of the screens, come out of whatever it is that's distracting us, whatever it is that's blocking us from unconditional love, because that's the highest octave of Neptune. And so it could mean so many things. It also could be Mercury is the conversationalist. It's the one who wants to communicate and, like I said, go up and down between the worlds and go and play devil's advocate and debate. I can't tell you how much this astrology is very related to the hot topics of what's happening right now. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. How there's a person in the spotlight right now who is a debater, and so there's a lot of conversation that's occurring around what happened, around his work, around just all the topics that he discussed, which are very hard topics. Mercury is the discussion and the debate, and then Saturn is like the heaviness of the subjects, and like Neptune is there, and it's like, actually, let's just avoid that. let's just escape from that, and let's just maybe turn a blind eye, and let's, you know, Neptune and Saturn together could be spiritual bypassing, and it could be like wanting to just shut down and avoid. And I think we're at a point where we are recognizing that it's not really up to us when the timing comes for us to deal with certain issues, because the avoidance and the suppression and the censorship is getting us nowhere. It's actually getting us deeper into more trauma and more pain and more collective outrage. And so what we have to do is be brave enough to have the conversations that we need to have in our own lives. I'm not saying go out and pick a fight with random strangers, especially young college kids out of college. Anyways, we're gonna refrain from making comments about any of this. I am someone who believes in nonviolence, and I just will say that violence is never the answer when it comes to dealing with our problems. And I think that is a representation and a reflection for all of us to witness and see. Mars is making an opposition to Chiron. Actually, it started on the 18th. And so that's Thursday. And I'm recording this on Thursday, the 18th. So we have to be very delicate when Mars and Chiron are doing an aspect, especially like this, where they're opposing, they're kind of like a stalemate. Mars is the one who I think would have the upper hand in this fight, but Chiron has been hanging out in Aries for a while, since last year's eclipse seasons in Aries and Libra, and we had those eclipses come right on top of Chiron and Aries. And you know, there were things that came up around our abandonment issues, around our traumas that we came into this life with, that we didn't have control over, that we were victim of as children. You know, Aries is that little young baby in our adolescence and immaturity. And so, you know, Mars coming up into that opposition with Chiron in Aries is like, okay, where are we being reactionary? Where are we feeling the need to dominate, or feeling the need to like assert ourselves with yelling or fighting or violence, or, you know, declaring war, or, you know, anything like that? Like, what is the deeper wound that's coming from, that behavior is coming from? Because there's always something different. Anger is a secondary emotion. I think the quote is like, anger finally told me its name, and it was grief. And so we're not talking about like light and fluffy stuff right now. We're talking about deep core, you know, belief systems, and people's entire identities are wrapped up in their belief systems. And so if those are threatened and they are made to feel like they're wrong for what they believe, there is a really high chance of retaliation. And so it's a very difficult and delicate process to navigate debating in as an art form, I would say. So anyways, back to the beautiful kite. So another thing that I thought it really looked like was a compass or a shield. And then the last thing I thought is, this was the first thing that I thought, it looks like a sailboat. And I obviously thought of the, boats that are going to Gaza, and they are going as humanitarian aid, and they are going without any sort of like government affiliations. They're just humans on their way to help other humans. And they're from all these different countries, and it's a beautiful thing. Virgo is the humanitarian, it's the nurse, it's the healer, it's the high priestess, it's the one who is devoted above all else, who shows up every day, who has the tools to heal, and is that conduit for spirit to flow through so that we can experience, those of us who might still feel disconnected from the spiritual realm, they can have that experience of the spiritual realm through these facilitators or these healers. And so Virgo I've mentioned in the first video about the first new moon, Virgo is the only sign in the zodiac that is associated with an actual female. And to reiterate, the gender is not as important here. It's about the energy, and it's about what that looks like. Virgo as a healer is inherently a feminine energy, because the feminine energy is about resting and about passive and versus active with masculine energy. That's the real duality, not really so much masculine and feminine, but we use those terms. So thinking about what we need to do now, I think Virgo is very associated with, like I said, high anxiety. It's very associated with being a workaholic. All the earth signs can have that kind of like relationship to work where they might use that as an escapist thing. And so like figuring out how to balance your work and your pleasure, because right now it's difficult to make any plans because there's so much uncertainty. It's difficult for us to feel like we have any sense of control. It's difficult for us to want to go into the details, like all these Virgoan aspects. And so let's just let it be. Let's control what we have control over. How we choose to wake up in the morning, our morning routines, our relationship to the work that we do in the world, and asking ourselves, is this something that fulfills my soul? Because that's the Pisces Virgo opposition with the nodes right now. For the next year and a half, ever since January of this year, 2025, until June, I think, of next year, 2026, we are moving through this portal of Pisces, Virgo, South Node, and North Node. And so I think the ultimate, or one of the biggest things that we're faced with during this energy is, what does our work, how does it fit in to our spiritual life? And how can we make the mundane more magical? And how can we bring an element of soul into our work? And what we're devoted to something that our soul is also devoted to? And I think it's more important than we realize to make those adjustments and to do the work that our soul is here to do, instead of just like the work that we feel safe in, or that we, are going about the motions with, and we're just comfortable or whatever. So, it looks like a boat. It looks like the flotilla, and it looks like and feels like a protection symbol, like a shield. And I think it's really beautiful. My jaw literally dropped when I saw this chart. I've never seen a chart so perfectly symmetrical, and it's not perfect. Let's remember. It couldn't be perfect because perfect doesn't exist. But shout out to all my Virgos out there. I looked up some other charts around the equinox because I thought maybe it's just an equinox thing, But the equinox only involves the sun and the moon, and it actually doesn't have anything to do with astrology. It does, and it doesn't. yeah, and it is just so beautiful to see this balance in the geometry of the chart as well. And so I'm not going to get too technical about what else is happening here. I will say that the other planets, or the outer planets rather, are all retrograde right now. That means Saturn, Jupiter, or sorry, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, all four of them are retrograde. And so we're being asked as a collective to review what's going on the grander scale. The outer planets work generationally, and I think the Saturn, especially Saturn and Neptune opposition to Mercury that I talked about, is really like highlighting where we are still gripping to control through the structures, the old ways of being, and the old structures that we know are crumbling and that they themselves are clinging to power. And it's clinging and gripping that Virgo in like, I gotta keep control. I can't lose it. I can't lose it. And then that Pisces down there in Aries is like, you are living in Delulu land. It's lost. It's okay to be lost. It's okay to be uncertain. It's okay to let things be a mess. It's okay to be a mess. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay. And we have to just figure out how to self-regulate and to, like I said, employ the tools in our toolbox. I would say with this grand Air Trine, one of the best ways for us to connect with our bodies and with our nervous system is through breath work, and this can be very simple. I'm going to leave a link down below for one of my favorite meditation techniques that I've been teaching my students in my yoga classes these past couple weeks now. And I cannot emphasize enough how simple it is for us to connect with the third eye and the frontal cortex, because when we're living in fight or flight, we are constantly living in the hindbrain, or another term is the monkey mind. And the monkey mind has only a few certain duties assigned to it. One of them is food, the other is sex, the other is fear, and I think the other is sleep. Those are our four basic needs, and those are important, and it's very understandable that a lot of us are just trying to get those four basic needs met. And it's rough right now, and there is absolutely no shame in people who identify with living in survival mode, especially at this time in our lives, in history. But so how simple it truly is to shift out of the hindbrain and into the frontal cortex is simply bringing awareness to the breath. As soon as we think about the breath and we notice it flowing in and out, you don't have to breathe a certain way, just noticing what the breath is doing naturally, bringing your awareness to the breath. You're there. That's it. You don't have to do anything. And now, I'm not saying don't do anything else. I'm saying that is how simple the process can begin. And it's available to us all. And I hope that we can use the resources that are available to us, because these are free and available things that we all have access to. If you can breathe, I won't say everyone. I don't know. There could be certain special situations, but most of us can bring our awareness to our breath and start there. And just maybe start practicing that, and finding yourself when you're really caught in something. See if you can derail the spiraling and bring yourself into the breath. It's a game changer. And especially, with fighting and debating and what have you. So I think it's a really interesting time, and I think that there is so much to say. I will say that we had a pretty significant shift occur on August 31st, where Pluto has moved what is called out of bounds. And so what that is the sun has a equator, and it expands out into space, causing or creating a celestial equator spread out from its own equator. And when planets move above or below this equator, too far to the north or too far to the south, it's called out of bounds. And planets do this, but not quite very often. And what happens when a planet is out of bounds is the planet's energy is emphasized, it's unpredictable, it is amplified, and when it's to the south or to the north, it means different things. And so people have done research on how, or really what is going on during a Pluto south out of bounds period of time. And it will be out of bounds to the south for the next 10 years. And what Pluto in Aquarius out of bounds to the south is supposedly to be bringing us is more rebellious, anti-establishment, power to the people, rather than with what it would look like going to the north, which is people submitting to powers over them, more of like a Pluto and Capricorn style thing. I want to point out too that I started to really, think about the situation in Gaza, and I looked up how long has this been going on. And in 2007, that is when the Strip was officially shut down and the airport was destroyed. People have basically been trapped inside of this area for 22 years. And 2007 is 1 year before Pluto moved into Capricorn. 2008 is when Pluto moved into Capricorn. And that had been playing out, that power over structure, that like, I'm gonna tell you what to do and you don't have a choice in the matter, and I don't care if you're suffering, I don't care. That's what we've had. And so it's really, really interesting to me to see what's happening now. And I'm not saying interesting like it's a good thing, it's just very like in alignment with the energies, because we had Pluto move into Aquarius last November, and that's, last October, and, the year before that, when the first sort of like rumblings of the big issue started to come forward, we are seeing it now full-fledged, and Pluto is playing a part in this. And, for the next 10 years, we're just seeing the beginning of what this might look like. And I'm not here to create fear. I'm just here to help in any way of being more aware of what's going on in the energies and what they might mean. So we should be prepared to experience more upheaval, more shocking events, more rebellious. And a rebellious act is not always something that involves anger and violence and emotional reactions. And I'm not saying none of us are entitled to those things, but yeah, none of us are entitled to violence, but like being angry and being emotionally reactive is understandable. But we have to figure out what is sustainable as well, because the burnout comes in those situations too, and it comes, with fire. If fire burns too hot and it burns too wild, it can destroy everything, and it can burn out really fast too, because it's burned so hot and so bright, and then it's just like boom, there's no more wick left. You're burned at both ends. And so we can figure out now with this Virgo energy the sustainable actions that we need to take to bring in the new earth that we wish to create, that we are actively co-creating every single day of our lives with every choice that we make. No pressure. I think that's just one more thing with the Mercury-Saturn opposition, is like there is pressure from this Saturn to make us change, and to bring that change into our daily lives, and to put our money where our mouth is. Virgo is like, we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. We are the embodiment. Okay? And it's humility too, and it's staying humble, and it's like, it's not about being better than someone else. It's about being the best version of yourself, and acknowledging how far you've come and how much you're improving. Yes, there's always more to improve, but like being grateful for how much you have done, and that from that space is where you can move and grow even more, instead of this lack where it's like, I'm never good enough. Yeah. So, okay. This is happening at 3:54 Eastern Standard Time, by the way. If you, PM, if you live somewhere else, please adjust your time according to where you are located. We not only have this eclipse happening on Sunday, we have the equinox happening on Monday. Sun moves into Libra. And right on that same day, we have Mars, who rules over Scorpio and Aries, moving into Scorpio. It's one of its favorite places to be. If you've felt like you've had one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas for a while, and it's been like, you got all these things you need to get done, but it's like you just haven't been able to make the time for it, or, figure out how to motivate yourself, or whatever it is, Mars in Scorpio is going to be a jetpack for us to all get what needs to get done in our lives and take the action that we need to take. Scorpio is a deeply feminine and mystical sign, and she is asking us to dig deeper and to not be afraid of our own shadows, not be afraid of our own secrets, our own past, our own, dirty secrets, or any of those old stories that we have that are playing in our head that is also helping us to fuel that anxiety. Those are the things that we are able to wash away with, I think, Mars in Scorpio. It's like, Scorpio is about transformation, and Mars is about these, it does rule over masculine energy, it rules over men, and it rules over anyone who might identify as a man or feel, we all have masculine and feminine within us, let's remember. And so we all have been conditioned by this society, and we, a lot of us grew up with Pluto in Capricorn, and we were taught that a society that gaslights us and that, creates immense distrust and uncertainty, and clearly has no regard for our own personal, health and livelihood and well-being, that's normal. That's been normalized. And so we're asked with the Scorpio is like, bring those skeletons out of the closet, reveal what's been hiding in the darkness, reveal that stuff that we've been too scared to reckon with, and because it would catapult us into a huge transformation. And the denial is, not getting us anywhere. It's I understand it's a gradual process, but yeah, the time is nigh. And Mars moves into Scorpio, and then it will make a square to Pluto 2 days after, on the 22nd, I believe. And that Mars-Pluto square is going to be dealing with power struggles, dealing with toxic masculinity, dealing with taking action on behalf of power to the people, like that whole power to the people concept, taking back your energy, whether that's, personal or what have you. Like, Scorpio rules sexual energy, and sexual energy has now become a currency in this modern day. So if that's something that's relevant to you, taking back that power and knowing that you are so powerful, and there are other ways to gain power over people, or like get money, or whatever it is that your situation is. Like, there are other ways that don't involve you having to exploit yourself. And I know everybody's choices are different, so please, just, if this resonates, take it. If not, that's fine too. Just something that I feel is coming up, because sexual energy is the most powerful energy in the world. It is what we call Kundalini energy, and it is the essence of the creative force of the universe that creates all things, that is in everything, that is in us. And the more we work with that energy, the more we are able to create fluidly in our lives, and we are able to work with that energy rather than feel disconnected or blocked or whatever it is. And so I think it's good for us to look at where we are feeling blocked right now energetically, and to take time to get curious about what's happening in the body. How could we get creative about the ways we work with the elements, or with the body, and like with the with our rituals, with our tools. Maybe going to a new class would be a great time right now for the new moon. It's important for us to remember that eclipses are kind of like the shuffling of the deck. And, nobody's playing the game when the deck is being shuffled. We're all just kind of watching the shuffler do its thing, and we don't have any control over it. And it's like, okay, you get these new cards now. You don't have any say. You didn't have to take any action either. But, what new cards are we all being dealt right now, and how do we react is the thing that we have to keep in mind. So, one other thing I want to make sure and emphasize about Virgo is its ability to be discerning. And like I said, Virgo rules the mind-body connection. How much outsourcing are we doing as individuals to other people and other ideals and other dogmatic systems, or whatever it is that we're subscribing to and outsourcing to? Can we reel it back and take our power back and think for ourselves about what it is that we need as individuals? Look into our heart of hearts and see what that moral compass is pointing to, what feels right for us, and get really deep and honest and humble about it too, and just, get real with yourself, and, just thinking for ourselves is, I think, the biggest thing right now in being discerning. And because there's a lot of information out there, and there's going to continue to be a lot of information for a long time. And of course, it's difficult to discern what's true and what's not when you just look at it logically. But when we go inward and we tune into our heart space and our inner moral compass, that is where the answers lie. And if we can wipe away any influence that, is telling us how to live or how not to live for just a little bit and think about it without that stuff being involved. I think that'd be very beneficial for us right now. And I want to emphasize too that there's a difference between being overly critical of a thing and having constructive criticism, right? Constructive criticism is how we improve. And can we figure out how to listen to each other and really, like, in the face of opposition in a conversation perhaps, can we really stop and ponder and consider and say, I never thought about it like that, perhaps. And, maybe that's not so easy, and maybe that's the delusion. And so it's going to be up to us as individuals to go forth and to be discerning in whatever situation we find ourselves in. So you got this. I believe in you. We're gonna go ahead and draw a rune. And once again, thank you so much for being here on this video. I want to ask my runes, who needs to come out? Which rune needs to come out for this collective reading here on YouTube? Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, yeah. Yep. Okay, so we got the same exact sigil that I had just drawn on the candle before, as I looked through my little list of runes here, and I'm like, yeah, which one would be best for this? I chose Ansu's, which is the F looking one, the F pointing down, and it means Odin, which is essentially Jupiter, if you want to conflate it to astrological terms. Odin is the sky god. Jupiter is, like Zeus, if you are more familiar with him. Jupiter is the sky. And it's also associated with inspiration and wisdom. So I think the Grand Air Trine is inspiring us and helping us to get creative and to stay hopeful and to stay joyful and stay connected with our inner child and heal what needs to be healed. Using the power of joy and pleasure and laughter and, these things. Not, of course, at the expense of others, and then the wisdom is, I think, where we have that Mercury-Saturn opposition. It's like, where is this ancestral wisdom, Saturn, playing a part in the way we live daily now? Like, how much of that would we benefit from integrating into our daily world that has just been lost and it has been, tragically just erased for the most part. But it's not fully erased, and I will tell you why, because the beautiful book Braiding Sweetgrass exists, and I want to go ahead and just read this beautiful quote that I thought was perfect for the Virgo ritual aspect of all of this. It's from chapter 4, which is titled An Offering. Ceremony is a vehicle for belonging to a family, to a people, and to the land. And there's a little bit that I cut out here, but then it continues. That, I think, is the power of ceremony. It marries the mundane to the sacred. The water turns to wine, the coffee to a prayer. The material and the spiritual mingle like mingle like grounds mingled with humus, transformed like steam rising from a mug into the morning mist. What else can you offer the earth, which has everything? What else can you give but something of yourself? A home made ceremony. A ceremony that makes a home. Devoting our energy every single day to doing our part in creating a new earth, in creating heaven on earth. So, when I have a earth sign energy going on, which we have with Virgo, mutable earth sign, we are drawn to the crystal oracle deck. And so let us draw a card for the collective. Crystal oracle deck. Which card do we need to have? Okay. All right. I like that. I like that a lot. We have ruby. And then on the bottom of the deck, we'd have labradorite. So let's read Ruby. It's my dog's name. Virgo is also associated with pets, so hopefully any type of pet or car related situation, like is coming to a place of completion or coming to a place of release. Ruby is about passion, love, and precious memories. Your passion for someone you love is being rekindled, and you will soon find yourself glowing with a newfound sense of joy and wonder for life. As you find yourself reflecting on all the blessings and precious memories derived from this beautiful relationship, you realize that bad times are easily forgotten, yet precious memories of love live forever. Love is an ocean which forever ebbs and flows, at times a raging sea, at times tranquil and calm. Remembering Neptune is going to be moving back into Pisces soon, and Neptune is about unconditional love, and it's about loving outside of any dogma, outside of anything really, any condition whatsoever, and that is a quality to be cultivated in this society, and for us to remember that I think this relationship that they're saying in this description is the relationship that we have to ourselves, because we've been indoctrinated by Christianity and by Pluto and Capricorn rather, to believe that we're only worthy if we do the right things and if we work hard, and and yes, we do need to work hard, and that is why we're here, is to, do our soul work, but it's not about, it has nothing to do with how worthy we are, and it has nothing to do with how clean and pure we are, it has nothing to do with, like, do we deserve rights, like human basic rights? We're so beyond that, but we've been conditioned by our government to believe that not everyone is entitled to the right to a high quality of life. And I recognize that it's easy to use the government as a scapegoat, and it's easy to use religion as a scapegoat, and it's easy to do these things and kind of just like pass the responsibility off to these other entities, these entities that we have either demonized or we have put on a pedestal, right? Like, both of them are scapegoats. With the demonizing, it's like, oh, that's just the bad thing. We're pointing the finger over there. It's not me, it's them. And then with the putting something on a pedestal, it's like, oh, they're so great. They're incredible. They are this, and I could never be like this. And it takes the responsibility, and that's spiritual bypassing both ways. And so instead of worshiping a concept, a person that represents a concept, or anything really, like even worshiping the earth, can be dangerous, because it's like that sense of like, oh, I'm worshiping this thing, can still offload any sort of responsibility or connection, like true connection that we have to this thing. And through our nurtured connection to this thing, hopefully something that we can connect to in the spirit realm that inspires us, we can continuously build the bond to this thing, and we can strengthen it and nourish it and show up every day in devotion, and we can make it a mystical experience. We are human beings having a spiritual experience, and we're in this 3D reality, yes, but we're also in this mystical reality that none of us have the words to describe, and none of us really know what's going on, and none of us, like, as much as any of us would like fight and grip and just like fight to the end about like, yes, I do know that this says this and blah blah blah, it's like, what if we all leveled the playing field and we all could admit that we don't know what's going on? Like, even with this ancient language of astrology, it's like, it still doesn't give us all the answers. It gives us clues, and we have clues. It's always been up to us to discern for ourselves what it all means, and that is a big responsibility. And it is like, the tendency to escape and to offload is very tempting because it's heavy and it's real, but that's the human experience, and we are all in it together. Just remember that. It's never that you are alone. I'm sending out so much love to anyone who's feeling very disconnected right now, because I think that's going to be something we're battling with Pluto and Aquarius for the next 20 years, is like feeling like no one understands us, feeling like we can't be authentic because no one will love us then, and then, we can't fully let the mask slip because once they see us, then we're toast, and those are all things that we're working with now, and they run deep. And so be patient with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, be loving towards yourself. Please, please, please know that you are not alone. And if my services can assist you in any way, I have readings available. So, and there are so many resources available, free resources, that, it's up to you to make the call and to have courage to ask for help when you need it, and et cetera, et cetera. Sending so much love to every single person who made it to the end of this video. Thank you so much for allowing me to interpret the energies, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. Bye for now.